Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wednesday's weekly football show, high school edition, with Tom Prince and Frank Wolf. Timmy Gardner producing. Tom, it's that time of year where we get back into high school football, and I know you've missed me.
It's funny. I thought the summer was going to be a little bit of full relax, and we did some baseball stuff this summer, which I thought was phenomenal. But really is, I thought this weekend was a tall tale sign. We hit that 60-degree day. You could feel the fall in the air, and you were saying, "Boy, football's right here upon us."
It is. It is. I know we've been to a number of different camps already. Teams have been out practicing. We traveled this summer. We went out to Cortland for the 7-on-7. We did Sweet Home again for cross training athletics, and went down to Jamestown Passing League to check out some of those Southern Tier teams. Your son, decided to go to ECC, and he's almost eligible for his first game.
Yeah, he'll be playing Sunday down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So, yep, or Saturday, sorry, and down in
Okay,
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
very cool. So the high school football season's rocking and rolling already. There's some new faces in certain areas, new coaches, some new fields. O'Hara and Randolph have new fields. We'll be excited about going to those facilities and streaming some games and showing off their new digs. Mark Benton is at Cat Little Valley. There's a new coach at Franklinville, Ellicottville. So some changes here and there, as you would
Coach in
expect.
Eden too.
Charlie
Yep.
Karstead is at Eden. Yeah, very good one. Good one. So we lost Burgard and JFK. There's no varsity football there this year, which is a shame. But those programs will bounce back. I believe they have JV programs to hopefully
That's
spearhead.
how you build it up.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. There's a lot of teams that don't have JV this year too,
Absolutely.
just
They went the
modified in
vice versa
varsity.
way. I don't mind the fact that you're doing that. Nobody wants to go see those blowout games by 50 points. Get in there, build it up, make sure you're competing against your own age. Get ready to see what's going to happen in the next
Yeah,
couple of years for those two
yeah.
programs.
And there's some high profile type players that we know aren't going to even be able to start the season. We saw one major injury with Lancaster, a kid named Perna, wide receiver, that battled back to get healthy onto the field, and unfortunately, not not his fault at all.
Uh,
Just unfortunately tore up his knee and won't be able to play in the season. So you feel terrible for that kid. And there's Rob Gillette from Lakeshore, a quarterback who was a shining light of that Eagles program. They have a new coach, by the way, as well.
yeah.
We're gonna feel bad for that kid. Hopefully, he comes back at some point and gets to have a senior season. I really feel bad for that
He was
Lancaster
going to
kid,
be
though.
up for one of the top quarterbacks inside the small schools too.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely,
there he was
absolutely.
going to be in the mix for that. And at least we do get to see Lakeshore's old coach every single day, especially if you tune into
Yeah.
WGRZ.
Yes, yes, yes. I think he's right a little bit more in the football field with his play calling than the weather sometimes. Just kidding, Dan. Just kidding. But a couple of things we should probably point out before we get too involved with our preview show. Again, thank you very much for tuning into us. Today's show is a tape show, but we will be airing it live. We'll start doing this live again probably next Wednesday when we have a little bit more time to prepare. We got a crazy week here. We launched CNY Athletics last week. It's another website, kind of a model of WNY for Central New York. That's Section 3 and Section 4 population. Um, and we're going to be streaming some games on cnyathletics.com and having some recap articles and features and things of that nature involving that part of New York State. So we're trying to kind of send this downstate. So the whatever we have to offer kids here in this part of the state, we're going to hopefully offer the same thing to those guys down there as well. And yes, we're starting with football because it's the easiest. I mean, that's where the most love for high school sports is. This is football. High school football is here, and everything else is below it. And there's no arguing. We've been doing this for too long time. We know as much as we love hockey, basketball, and baseball, it's not football. It does not have the same. Uh, it doesn't get the same kind of coverage as football does. Football is king in this area, and unfortunately for those other sports, it's just the way it is. But we will do all different sports in Syracuse, just like we do here in Western New York. So stay tuned for that. High school sports is back. Um, I do want to send a shout out before we get too involved. One of our photogs, Andrew Miller, who is just a lovely human being, just a great guy. He's been doing photos for Monsignor Martin for a long time. St. Joe's grad. Um, Andrew came down recently. Was announced that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and Andrew is a huge contributor to high school sports and to WNY athletics, and we just wish him the best. I know he's going in for chemo. Actually, today is his first round, so we're with you, Andrew, and we send you all of our love and support. And as you battle this horrible disease, and we're praying for you every day. Andrew got a call from St. Joe's last week. He will be enshrined in their Hall of Fame as a contributor for his years and years of hard work for that program. So, congratulations and great call by the Marauders for doing that. Andrew richly deserves that honor. So, moving on, again, another year without Dick Gallagher and Roger Weiss involved with high school football.
And also
So,
Dennis.
and Dennis
Hmm.
Sarro and a host of others, but Dick Gallagher, Roger Weiss were two guys. Roger every Saturday on high school sports, and then Dick just at every single football game, and his doing his weekly thing on GRZ. I did hear, so we always think about those guys at the beginning of the season, of course. I did hear Mark Adair's back with his weekly football magazine,
Hmm.
so that'll be big for high school football. I know that we ran a magazine the last couple of years, and we tried to fill the void while he was on a hiatus. So WNY Athletics will not be doing our weekly magazine that we had been doing. We were just holding Mark's place for him. Mark's back. Hopefully, we'll have that magazine out each and every Wednesday, and we look forward to doing that and seeing him again on the sidelines. Um, but carrying on here, Western New York High School football last year. Before we get into our previews, why don't we talk about those champions from last year, so we don't forget them? Tom and Monsignor Martin. It was St. Francis again. They had a huge year. Canisius is starting to bring it. They're
that's
starting to get
that's the
close that
one right
gap.
now. Is listen, you've got two right now linemen
Yeah,
on Canisius that's committed to go Division One.
yeah,
Telling you,
yeah.
this could be the flip that we're talking about this year
Very well.
that we see Canisius get
So
back.
Franny's took the large school, and then that B division was Timon.
Yep.
Timon now moves up into that A division as
Okay.
well. So Timon's going to be battling it out with Franny's and Canisius and Joe's. Uh, Section 6 champions, Double A was Bennett. Got by Lancaster at the stadium and finished their season down in that West,
State
the
semifinals.
state
Yep.
semifinals. Lost to CBA, who
Correct.
was your eventual state champion.
Yep.
Um,
And gave them, if you think about it, if you if you take from the second quarter on in that game, that right there becomes a very
yeah,
close game that could have gone either way.
sure. Um, in the A bracket, it was Clarence taking their first Section 6 title under Coach Paul Bergio, and almost all of them are coming back this year. That is going to be
That
one.
whole line was almost
Oh my
sophomores
God.
and juniors. Like
Yeah,
they are gonna be tough. That's
yeah,
a team right now that Clarence better be ready because they're gonna have that game circled on
yes,
the calendar for everybody in that
yeah,
league because that team is that good and all eyes are on them.
absolutely. There's no hiding anymore. Not that they ever hide.
No,
Double A's
no,
and
no,
A's know they
no,
can't
no.
hide, but
They know it.
you know who's got the bullseye and
Yep.
who doesn't. Health Sciences Class B once again had a phenomenal season. Class C Salamanca came out of there. They really poured it on at the end of the year because early on they took a little bit of lumps. I mean, they had that loss to CSP, very
Yep.
one-sided affair there, a D school, but Salamanca rebounded and did very well, and they got all the way to the semifinals as well
And remember that C
and lost to a
South,
state champion.
yes, and that C South division is loaded. Every year we talk about that C South, and really who comes out of that C South is battle tested to take on
Yeah,
anybody in any
yeah.
other division.
I can't wait to start talking about that in the next segment. Class D CSP kind of ran away with it in that D division, not just here, but they destroyed that team from Section 5. And then they ran into Tioga, who hasn't lost in what, 20 years or something. The last time they lost was maybe to
To
CSP
CSP,
in a
yeah,
state title match.
yep.
So um,
But I'll tell you, they come back fully loaded themselves.
CSP comes back. Well, that line,
Right.
that's a concern for them.
Well, but that's
Uh,
a concern every year, especially when you're in a smaller school, right?
yeah,
Because you've got to make sure you develop that line. But we've seen over and over again that CSP coaches, some of the best coaches in Western New York, will have them ready even if it's that they may have a smaller line, they'll do stunts,
Yeah.
they'll do different things to make sure that that line's ready to go.
Well, we certainly hope so. Those are your winners from 2023, your privates and your publics. We're going to come back in the next segment and let's dive into those classes all the way from D up through Monsignor Martin in our next segment. You're watching the weekly Wednesday football show with Frank and Tom.
And remember, you can call me anytime.
Anytime?
Oh, this is my client.
Hello!
Injury attorney William Mattar always puts his clients first.
I gotta take this.
There you go. Sorry, I gotta take this.
He's recovered millions for injured accident victims.
Easy out, easy out. Ooh, it's mine. This is William.
Hurt in a car? Call William Mattar.
Welcome back to the weekly Wednesday football show with Tom Prince and Frank Wolf. Tim Gardner producing here on WNY Athletics. Week 1, new beginnings for a lot of teams. We're going to start off with Class D. And the new moving part there, obviously, is Cat Little Valley's new coach, Mark Benton, who's been around for over 3 decades worth of coaching, and he seems to take on a lot of refurbished jobs, trying to, turn programs around. And he's charged with returning Cat Little Valley to a competitive level. They haven't been competitive in years. In fact, I want to say they're on a 20 to 22 game losing streak right now in Section 6. Maybe their last game they won might even have been against like a Cardinal O'Hara team, which has also struggled the last few years. Last year they kind of started to turn the table there. We'll get to them later. But Cat Little Valley, when Mark got the job, it was announced in January, and the first thing he did was he had done his work with the video. He's seen other games and things like that, so he knew what he was walking into, and he accepted the challenge. He went to a basketball game, Tom, to see if he had athletes to work with. And he said he found a couple. He goes, this guy here could be my fullback. That guy there could be my quarterback. And he had put some things together, a game plan with his staff that he was able to bring in. He met with the guy there that handles the weight room. They have a guy there that religiously works with kids in the weight room. Those numbers were up.
Hey, you don't have that at a lot of schools.
No. And then in this early spring, like April, he had a big meeting of all the players and coaches and parents, and he said there was almost 90 people here, and that they haven't had that kind of gathering for Cat Little Valley football in quite some time. So he can see things are starting to turn around. How competitive will they be this year? We'll have to wait and see. They did a 7-on-7 with Salamanca. First round was at Cat Little Valley, and he said we got rolled. We got beat up pretty good. But the second time around, they cleaned it up a little bit. Now they still had their way with them here and there, but he goes, I saw things in that second scrimmage with them that gives me hope that there is some players here that can play the game. They just need to be coached up, and they got to stick together. So that's something that he's working on. And then they had a scrimmage with Springville recently.
Right.
And he said they can throw the ball on us. But he said they did a good job of containing the run. And he thinks that's the strength right there. And Tom, as you know, a guy who likes to talk about the line, if Cat Little Valley, if that's their strength, so be it. But that's where it all starts, and you talk about that week in, week out.
And Springville's line's good. That's a good line
Yeah.
that was returning back, and it's something that they are strong and took a lot of pride in last year because they ran the ball much more than they threw.
Yeah. So Cat Little Valley looks like they're looking to be competitive. They may not win 3 or 4 games. They may win 1 game. It doesn't matter. I think with what Benton brings and his staff is maybe some confidence and still confidence in the guys. He said they might have 29 or 30 kids dressed for that first game. That's quite an accomplishment already to have that many kids. A couple kids got injured.
Which happens early on.
Farming
all the time.
accidents, not even on the field, just farming accidents.
Oh,
So he's hoping to get a couple of those guys back when they're healthy. He goes, we got an opportunity here to really at least not be walked over. They were losing 60-0, 70-7,
yeah.
ugly losses. I think those days are over. Hopefully those days are over. So I'd like to get them on a live stream this year. We want to stream as many teams as we can. We don't want to show a team losing 60-0. That doesn't do anyone
We
any
find a
good.
good game, and I'd be
Yeah.
more than well. I go everywhere there
Yep.
is for that big one. So
Another next team I want to talk about is go on to Pine Valley and how much this team has riding on its shoulders this year. Kyra Capozzi,
Posey's big.
as you know, is a great baseball player in himself, but he turned a lot of heads last year. Um, we knew that they had a quarterback, and Quentin Centers is gone, his top receiver, but there are a couple playmakers there in Gowanda that are returning. Some young guys, if they can step up and he can spread that ball around a little more, they got a chance to again turn some heads this year and make a run. There's only what is there? There's 6 teams in Class D. At least the top 4 are going to make the playoffs, or they're going to give the first 2 teams bye and have 3, 4, 5, 6 ballot out.
Which they've done that too. So
Either way, Gowanda, if they can string 3 to 4 division wins together, which
get you a home game.
it could get you a home game.
Absolutely.
And we know CSP is the king of the division right now. Can you get to the stadium by being one of those 2 or 3 teams as to avoid them in a semifinal?
And I'm
Can
even
you
going to say
imagine if Gowanda or Cat Little Valley can sneak into Highmark Stadium?
it's exactly what Wilson did last year,
100%.
right? So can Gowanda be the team this year that
Yeah.
does what Wilson did last year? Remember, Wilson did it behind Mahar last year. Do they do it
Yeah.
behind Capozzi this year is
Yeah.
the big question.
Yeah. I think a running back as bullish as Mahar was is a big reason why Wilson got there.
Absolutely.
The quarterback needs, I think, a little bit more help. He's got to have time to react. He's got to have time to find his receivers. Capozzi is a composed quarterback, pure pocket passer, can run a little bit, dart for an arm. I'm very excited about what Brett Eberling has there at Go On to Pine Valley, and they're going to open up on the road against Portville Thursday. I'm going to head on down there and get a front row seat to see how Capozzi's
That's
developed.
awesome. Here's the big question, okay? In the D conference alone last year, Capozzi throws for 1,620 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's the circle right there.
Yeah.
He cleans that up, single digits down there in interceptions in that D division. Watch out, they become very dangerous.
I certainly hope so. Wilson, Tom, they got to the stadium last year. They lost one of the top linemen in all of Western New York to transfer. That hurts. It doesn't help. He's got a younger team coming back. I know that
And your
there's
leader.
in your leader
And your
Mahar.
leader, yeah.
Yes. But this Brock Lepsch kid, I believe he's a junior this year. He's one of these kids that can play the game. A young kid, junior, but he still assumed a leadership role in that locker room. And you've got a Frericks in there. Colton Frericks, I don't know if he's QB1, QB2, or a dual backfield type. Maybe both these guys play a little quarterback. There's a Ryan Huff there who caught a couple of touchdowns last year. Definitely a setback with the lineman leaving, but I think with Bill Atlas, what we know about him and his coaching staff, which includes Coach Ferry, very good, very aggressive. And I think as long as they have the numbers, which they didn't really have last year, if he's got some numbers, 25 to 30 kids, they can get good practices week in, week out. They could still be in the mix here.
Yeah, Ryan Huff was also that big leader. That was that baseball player that could play wide receiver. That's going to be that
An
guy
athlete.
that's got to come up big
Yeah,
for them.
an athlete. He's an
Yep.
athlete. So that's what you're looking for. Franklinville, Ellicottville,
New coach too.
a new coach there. I believe they've got the one running back, quarterback. They've got a couple of different pieces there that play multiple. Well, as you know, in Class D and Class C, you've got guys that have to go both ways. But I want to say they had that one player. His name's escaping me right now. My apologies. Hunter Smith left, but it was Isaac Town.
Yep.
So he was like a running back, a quarterback, jack of all trades.
I mean, he was considered when you look at just numbers from last year that's out there for him. I mean, he, for numbers wise, was one of still the top quarterbacks inside the D division. I mean, he finished right behind Connor Ernst last year of Wilson. He's the number 4 quarterback that's out there. And again, somebody that's ready, it's got experience that could come in and lead the way.
There's Billy Slavinsky there, a receiver who I want to say was up there with tackles on the defense for Franklinville, Ellicottville last year. There's also a Bleeka there. I don't know how good he is, but we know that there was a Bleeka there not too long ago that carried that team into the stadium not too long ago. So that's Franklinville, Ellicottville, Tom. I think they're a much younger team, and they're going to have some struggles this year, especially with the new coaching staff coming in. I think they're going to, out of the gate, they might struggle just a little bit, but once they get their bearings, and they're known for that line
Yep.
play, you play on two different fields.
Very close though. They're not far. I
They're
mean,
not
they're very
falling.
close.
Yeah,
In fact, CSP probably does more traveling than Franklinville-Ellicottville does when you talk about between the
yeah.
schools. But when you look at this ready to go, every year we seem to say Franklinville-Ellicottville does have some sort of hiccup early, but their name is in the conversation every year of getting to the stadium. And I don't think things change. I really believe we're still going to see a great Franklinville-Ellicottville team.
The one team that's made um, considerable strides, in my opinion, at least, is Randolph.
Oh, yeah.
You've got that Braley kid coming back, Connor Braley, running back, who runs a lot like Xander Hind. I'm not saying he's going to have Xander Hind type numbers, but it wouldn't surprise me with that line that they have in the coaching staff that this kid gets close. I don't think they're not talking about
Just a few
Braley like,
years ago, we were talking about them, right? It's
oh, they
just a
were,
1 year hiatus that really we've been talking about
which
them.
they don't have a lot of down years
Right.
in Randolph. They really don't. They are a Class C or D powerhouse year in, year out. Not their first rodeo, but Connor Braley is a kid to keep your eye on. Um, Jackson Morrison, the quarterback, didn't have to throw a lot last year. I think he will throw a little bit more. They got this, what's his name? Clark, Dominic Clark. I saw him a few times already in the offseason. This kid is an athlete. He can catch the ball. He can separate himself. He runs great routes. I like this Dominic Brown kid um, for Randolph. I think he's going to have a pretty good season. Dom Clark, his name is. He'll be a senior this year. Was also up there with tackles, defensive back. He told me when we were down at Jamestown in the passing league, a couple of the players said last year what they lacked was that voice in the locker room to kind of bring them together. He said we were a little too undisciplined, and this year they've got more emphasis on becoming a little bit, taking more of leadership roles, all of them. And then you've also got a Huntington there too, who's a nice player to have, and he put some muscle on. Remember his older brother Jaden Huntington. This
Oh,
this
yeah.
Huntington, what's his first name?
While you're looking that up,
Baker Huntington.
Braley, 720 yards last year, was second running back in all of D last year.
Yeah.
So you're bringing back experience at that same spot.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised to see, Randolph. I know it's early, but Randolph would be that dark horse to meet CSP at Highmark, and I say that with confidence because we've seen CSP last year, we've seen them all summer long. I don't think there's too many offenses that run as fluidly as that CSP offense. You got a Connolly Cup finalist in Tate Catnese. Bryce Hinsdale could easily have also been a Connolly Cup finalist, but then Alex Barmore and Carter Brink. Alex Barmore, much like his brother, is starting to grow into that body. He's got the hands, he's got legit speed, and just athleticism. And we already know what kind of an athlete Bryce Hinsdale is and what he brings. He brings different aspects to the game. A great cornerback, um, kicks very well. He's all over the field, and he's got a chance to be a state leader in receptions this year. Um, he had a phenomenal year last year. Carter Brink is this other kid that hardly gets talked about, and all he does is make catches, catch after catch, gets open. That's a that's a well-oiled machine. What they've got down there, tough, tough to stop.
Agreed.
But even Ty Harper had told me in this past week that he agreed that the line is a bit of a concern because you've got you turned over the whole line basically.
Right.
But Frank Payne or Chris Payne down there, we know him well enough to get their guy to play their guys up. Yeah, I don't know too many guys who can coach up players better than Chris, but it's their division for the taking, right?
No, I really believe that. And we've said that the last couple of years. And I will say this to you too. How many teams in Western New York can we sit here and say have one great defensive back, never mind one, but 2 or even 3, because you're going to need that to play a CSP team right there. You can't just think you're going to take one of those wide receivers out and you're going to have a day, because these other wide receivers can do just as well what you're out there talking about.
And Tate can also run.
Yes.
I mean, who led the Class D in rushing last year? I don't think Kate. If Cat Nees wasn't number one, he wasn't too far behind.
Yeah, I mean, well,
So-
Mahar was
Maher,
obviously
yeah.
the number one, and we just talked about it. Actually, through Randolph was the number 2 running back right there.
So they're a
They are
well-oiled
primed.
machine,
They're
and
primed to do what
it's
they're capable of
yeah
doing.
they have their sights set again on the Section 6 championship and even further down the road.
To be flat honest with you, we know what's going to happen. This weekend we're going to see
You'll go down there to
we're
see
going to
their
go down there.
Waverly.
We're going to see Waverly take on Maryville, and then you're going to.
No.
I'm sorry, Maryville take on Tioga. Waverly take on CSP.
I'll tell you what. We were there last year to see the Tioga CSP game. In the 10 years CSP's been together, they have never lost like that.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think those kids have a hard time of forgetting that, and they are still. I mean, obviously, you put things behind you.
No,
We're still talking about 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. They didn't forget that, and I think they're going to use that as motivation all year, because that was we don't see too many teams lose like that, especially a program like CSP after the season they had. To lose in that fashion, they're coming back pissed.
Agreed. And I think you'll see them at this other game, because they will be taking notes, because that's a game you're looking at down the season.
Absolutely.
Yep.
They're hanging out. They'll be there to watch that
Oh, no doubt.
Maryville Tioga game. Why don't we move on to Class C? Actually, you know what? Let's just talk real quick. 8-man football. Frewsburg, Allegheny Limestone, the only 2 teams in 8-man. Don't know a whole heck of a lot about these programs.
Remember, Allegheny
but
Limestone's losing their quarterback.
They're losing their quarterback. Yeah, the Frederick kid.
Yep.
Michael Frederick, phenomenal athlete. Frewsburg's got some pieces. They were able to finally do that passing league at Jamestown. They weren't able to do it a year before. Those 2 teams should be okay.
Well, Frewsburg won last year.
Frewsburg did win. I don't think
even
they're
with a very good quarterback at Allegheny Limestone.
Something tells me they're off the first 2 weeks. But Red Jacket plays at Allegheny Limestone Friday night. But I thought I heard that Frewsburg doesn't play until week 3.
Okay, and Frewsburg dude, I know Frewsburg and Allegheny Limestone were part of a big week 0 type day where they did a round robin with 4 teams.
Nice.
That were all 8-man teams this past week also.
Yeah, they play September 20th, 7 p.m. at Frewsburg, AL in Frewsburg, and I think that's Frewsburg's first game. Anyways, let's take another quick break. We'll come back with the C's. You're watching the weekly Wednesday football show with Frank and Tom.
Western New York Immediate Care's new locations are now open. Whether you've suffered a minor injury or just aren't feeling well, Western New York Immediate Care provides safe, quick, high-quality care at an affordable cost. Our clinicians are trained to diagnose and treat non-life-threatening injuries and illnesses and are equipped with on-site x-ray and labs to help you feel better, faster. With 4 convenient locations open 7 days a week, Western New York Immediate Care is here to help when and where you need us. Visit us online to learn more.
Education has power. Binghamton University students discover it, apply it, unleash it. Unleash your education today.
Welcome back to the weekly Wednesday football show here on WNY Athletics with Tom Prince and Frank Wolf, Tim Gardner producing. We are into the Class C's, Tom. C North last year, Medina, Newfane, Akron, 3 teams that had very good seasons. And then in C South, Salamanca, Southwestern, Fredonia, Portville, very good seasons as well. Fredonia probably didn't do as well as they thought they were with the injuries that just really beat them up early in the season. Weren't able to get back into the thick of things towards the end. Finished with a 6-4 overall record, but not as good as what they had hoped beginning of the year. So at the stadium, we did have Medina and Salamanca. Salamanca took that Class C title. They had some of the best athletes to show up at the end of the season. I mean, Tom, we weren't talking about Salamanca earlier in the season at the outstart. We really weren't talking about some of these guys like Maddock Isaac, Jackson Ross. It wasn't really until like week 3 or week 4 that we started to really say, wait a second, Chad Bartozik's got something going here. They got some momentum right now. Maybe it was the CSP loss that that really dominated our thoughts.
But it was a real close game. It was like 7. Remember, it was 7-6 at halftime,
Yeah,
and CSP pulled away in the second half. Is what it was in that
that could have
game.
been it.
But actually, no, we were talking about them because I kept saying, "What? There's too much down there
Yeah,
to be able to see it." But this is loaded. This division.
yeah,
When you, like I
yeah,
said, that's why we
yeah.
said early on, watch out because the C South is so dangerous. Are you going to bet against Southwestern? They come every year with a team that's out there. So does Salamanca. You know Portville's going to be ready. You know Fredonia is going to be ready. Faulkner has been great the
Yeah.
past couple years, and now you've got a brand new head coach that's invested over in Eden at the same exact time.
Yeah. So C South, if we start there, Silver Creek is Silver Creek. They didn't win a game last year, low numbers. I got to see them a little bit at training camp with Sean Helmer. Talked to him for a little bit. He's a little bit excited. He's got some pieces there. It looks like they've got a line. It looks like they've got some guys up front that might be able to buy them some time to get some plays going. So I'm hopeful Silver Creek can get something going. I think they open up against Fredonia there. Now his son, Sean Helmer's son, is like a wide receiver at Fredonia. So that'll be a pretty interesting matchup right there to watch. I don't have Silver Creek getting to the stadium this year, but hopefully I can eat my words.
Well,
You just want to see them win a game and start building that program back up because Silver Creek, Forestville, those kids come out every day, work their asses off. You want to see some improvement there, and I think you will. I think you will see some improvement. It looks like they've got new blood into the program to kind of help them get back into their winning ways.
and Frank, if that does happen, exactly what you say, that just makes that C South even more dangerous, is exactly what it does.
Absolutely.
Because it just means now the bottom becomes the middle. And
Yeah.
how big is that middle now become? And it means that every game has got that much meaning inside the division.
100%. And we love doing games that they're stadium, the
Yep.
Black Knights there. So hopefully we can get back there again and stream a game. Chautauqua Lake, Westfield, Brockton. Ryan Gibbs, head coach. His son is the quarterback. They've got this kid, Nick Jacobson, who didn't play last year, 6'4". You love him. He's a track star, high jump, all that stuff. And this kid could play football. And they've got other pieces there. But look for Chautauqua Lake to turn some heads here. 1-6 in the league last year. They open up at Salamanca. So that'll be a huge
It's
test.
going to be a
but
test for them, you know?
it'll be a big test for them. But outside of that game, they're opening up their season didn't look extremely difficult. Like if they can get 2 to 3 wins out of those first 3 weeks, Tom,
You go for
they have a shot here.
Fredonia. Their second game is Silver. Oh, I'm sorry. Game 1, Salamanca. Game 2, Fredonia.
Yep.
Game 3, Silver Creek. Then game 4, Falconer, Casadega
Okay.
Valley.
So if they can get 2-3 wins there earlier in the season against division opponents, you're talking a possible playoff matchup. So that first few weeks, if Chautauqua Lake can put it together, and I'll tell you, up at Will North during the 7-on-7s there, they were step for step with St. Francis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they struggled against OP, but against St. Francis, they only lost by like a touchdown. 7-on-7, no line,
I get it, but
still,
it's
that confidence.
that's little wins. Those
Yeah.
are wins that help make your season successful if you can build off them the right way.
Yeah, so let's see what happens with Chautauqua Lake, Westfield. The other team, Falconer, Casadega Valley, Maple Grove. Kurt Fisher's down there as head coach. He was able to convince a couple of guys that wanted to run the ball or play that to get on the line. He says, Frank, these two brothers play line for me, and I'm using my Kurt Fisher voice right now. If I can get them to play line for me, we're going to be tough. And I'll tell you, they've got this quarterback named Roth down there who's got NFL ties. His dad was like on the Bills scout team or practice team, so he's got a pedigree there. He said he wants this kid to grow up to become a leader. He goes, if I can get this kid to become a leader and be a quarterback, he goes, we've got weapons. I just need someone to get them the ball. If this kid buckles in and buys in, we are going to be tough. So I'm going to hold Kurt to that. And Falconer, 3-3 last year. I mean, you're
We're
one win
always
away
counting them
from
in, yeah.
you're one win away in the division from really having a great opportunity to reach the stadium.
I want to make a point about that lineman thing.
Go for it.
We have now made right now a huge deal out of one player that is a former player here in Western New York. That's Joe Andreessen, obviously. Where did he play when he was in high school? What did they have to convince him to do? He was on
Yes.
that offensive line at one point.
Yep.
Then what'd they do? They found him ways at quarterback. They did things on
Yeah.
defense. That's how it begins. So if he can convince those players to say, listen, we'll use you in certain packages, but I need you for the majority of the time on the line to help me there, and then use them other ways. Now you're talking about things that we've done with special players.
Well,
here
this
in
is
Western
what
New York.
Kurt had in Maple Grove. When he was the head coach at Maple Grove, he had like 7 or 8 guys that could play running back. He had no one that can block, so he took the best, toughest athletes he had and said, "Listen, I need you to play line. You play line, we're going to go win a Section 6 title. You're going to play at the stadium. If I can't have anyone block for you, we're not going anywhere." He convinced these kids, Tom, I will not be shocked. I would not be shocked at all if they stay healthy, and Kurt's right about this. We could see Faulkner again at Highmark Stadium, or we could see Kurt Fisher, I should say, back at Highmark Stadium. I'd love to see Kurt get there. You know, he had a rough summer. Tom, he had some medical things going on, Kurt, and you know, we prayed for him, and he's looking like he's doing very well. Fredonia. I can't remember the name of the guy they have starting quarterback this year, but that's a team that, you know, Sam Azrot leaves. The kid they had last year, quarterback, you know, definitely a few steps down from
Doughty
what
or
they,
Lancaster?
not Lancaster.
So Donovan Doty.
Could be. Yeah, maybe. I'll get back to you on that, or we'll let one of the Sherlocks
I'm just
correct
looking at the
us.
quarterbacks right now on their roster for this season.
I
Those are
don't
the only
think the
two guys
Lancaster kid's ready just yet. That's not
listed
the,
at quarterback.
he
So
Helmer was in contention, but he wants talking to Fredonia coaches. They want Helmer on the outside as an
Yeah.
X factor type receiver.
they've got him as a wide receiver listed
So
on
that's
the
where they
roster.
want him. But they still got some linemen coming back, and you can rattle off some of those names if you got them up in front of you. But they've got a huge line. They got a kid that came in from Kentucky.
They got Bryce Backer listed as senior
Backer's
offensive
huge,
lineman,
big dude.
255, 6 feet, 255.
Monsters.
Zach Davis, a junior, 6'5", 275. Kyle Pratt, 6 feet, 330.
A monster.
Keyshawn Thomas, 6'2", 220. Colin Crowell, 6 foot, 270.
A
And
monster.
Ian Story,
Story's a
5'11",
beast.
275.
Story might be the one of the top athletes in all of Chautauqua County. This kid's a great wrestler too. What an
You're talking
athlete
about
this
what
kid
an
is.
athlete, 5'11", 275.
Yes.
And listen to what you're saying about athletic
He's a-
ability right
he
there.
is a beast. Yeah, I
So
can't
think
remember.
about this, and how dangerous is he going to be as a defensive lineman then this year, especially with that kind of an athletic ability.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Another kid that we didn't mention, Luca Gullo. This kid can run routes. This kid he's super fast, can run routes, great
Return
with the
the
ball in his
ball
hands.
too. Didn't he do some great
Well,
returns?
he's going
in
to
the
do a lot
past?
of good
Yep.
things with Fredonia. We'll have to wait and see. The jury's still out there after last season. Can they stay healthy? That's going to be the big question mark. Fredonia went 6-4 overall, finished at 4-4 in the division. Again, those early season losses didn't help their cause at all. They had to play catch up. Portville 7. They have Cuba Rushford Lake joining just like last year. 7-3 last year, 4-3. They lost a couple of good players, right? Caden's gone,
Oh yeah.
so they lost some horses.
I mean, pound for pound running back, you could say
Holcomb
Holcomb was one of the best.
yeah, he was. I mean, he beat
Yeah.
Fredonia single handedly last year. So they're definitely going to miss him. We're going to see what they have on Thursday night. They open the season, and we're not streaming it, but we'll be there and we'll get some updates for you and let you know how Portville looks.
You're going to go against a team that's going to be, run gun, want to throw the ball all
Yeah.
over the field. So you better be ready defensively in that game.
Coach Marsh has something dialed up for Gowanda, I'm sure. And how they finish the season, Tom, I don't have their schedule in front of me the rest of the way, but I know that first game against Gowanda, I mean, that's a game that Portville should win, right? Based on what we've seen the last few years and who has what coming back, that's a game that they should win. We'll have to wait and see. That's why they play them. They're going to go to Salamanca week 2. So they really need to get on a roll here again, just like Fredonia last year. You got to come out of the gate swinging. You don't want to walk into a league game, in week 4, 0-3 against your league opponents. So
And Portville's known for their defense the last couple of years. That's been their strength. If you remember winning, what was that one game? Was it
Wilson,
It was no it
playoff
wasn't-
game against Wilson.
No, it wasn't a playoff game. It was early in the year. Remember, we couldn't explain the game. It was 2-0 or
Oh.
I remember we were looking at the score all year last year going,
Southwestern.
how was this? And it was because
Southwestern.
their quarterback got
Yeah.
hurt last year in that
Yeah,
one.
that was Southwestern.
Yep.
Tom, week 3, they've got Faulkner at home though.
Well,
And
think
then
about just about every game's a conference game because you're inside your C South. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 teams. 7 weeks are gonna be
yeah.
games that are gonna be within your conference.
So I mean, Portville's got they got to run a gauntlet early in the season.
Porterville, their schedule will go on to 1, Salamanca, Falconer, Eden, Southwestern, Fredonia, Silver Creek, Chautauqua Lake. Their only out of
There's-
conference game is this one versus go on to week 1.
Yeah, and if you look at all those games with a clear mind, 2 games jump out at you that these should be winnable games for this. I can't find another one that you would say, oh yeah, they're going to win this game.
Right.
There's 2 out there that you could say these should be games we win, but that's not enough to get you into the playoffs.
And even so, that's based on last year's teams. You don't
Yeah,
know
you
who's
don't
come
know.
in. You don't know
don't
a lot
know.
of things because a lot of coaches don't want anything to get out until that season begins.
One team like Wilson, Southwestern, C South, one of their top players leaves for a private school. And what effect that's going to have on that defense and offense, who knows? It's not good, though.
No.
It's not good. So, Southwestern, they've got some nice pieces there. I feel,
But losing a big piece with Walsh last year too.
oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, well, that's a bigger replacement you're going to need to do.
I like the Brody Larson kid. I believe he's coming in to play quarterback for them this year. He can move the ball. He's a nice quarterback. He's doing very well. Had a great off season training camp and all that. We saw him in the 7-on-7s. He's good. There's a kid named Potter there that plays the line. Very big, good kid. I like the team. Again, I'm concerned about the loss on the line. The kid Tavio Hoos, who's going to be at St. Francis this year. It's a tough loss. Kevin Salisbury has a kid coming. Kevin Salisbury, his son Calvin plays. Kevin used to be he's the school AD. He's a Dunkirk guy. I liked him. He was a nice little player. I think he played well at that 7-on-7 in Cortland. So I'm looking to see how he does as a whole and see Southwestern. Tom, I don't know that loss of Hoos is absolutely huge.
Well, and
that
I'm going to
program.
put Walsh there too, right? Who's
Yeah.
and Walsh? You've
Yeah.
got to make up for.
Yeah.
And not only
Yeah.
was Who's big as far as the line, he was a part of the kicking game too that was out there.
Was it him or his brother that was the kicker? I thought his
Um,
brother was the kicker.
Yeah, and I could be wrong on
I
that.
think it was his brother was the kicker. But either way, you got an all-state wrestler, grappler. You need those. You can't have enough of those guys on the line. Huge loss for them. But Southwestern Burkholder's a great coach. And you got
Oh.
Kinder down there and a bunch of other coaches that know what they're doing.
Yeah, Nevis, I apologize,
Yep.
was the kicker.
And Kinder isn't on the staff, but he works with those guys. Salamanca is that 9-2, 7-0 in league last year, Tom. We saw them at Cortland. They got a lot of work to do, but he does have some pieces coming back from that championship team last year that he's going to have to rely on. He's got some leaders coming back, and guys are just going to have to fill those voids of players like Jackson Ross who left. And can they do that? We'll have to wait and see. Salamanca, who they opening up with, Tom? Do you have that information on you?
Chautauqua Lake.
Okay, yes,
Westfield
Chautauqua
Brockton,
Lake. So that's a game that they're going to have to hopefully jump on them early and come out on top if they want to.
I mean, they're going to
get the
ride
season rolling.
Maddox Isaac. I mean, that's
Of
their
course.
guy.
Yeah,
That's
Maddox
the
is the
guy you're
man.
looking right now that they're going to ride right now to the promised land.
Yeah, Salamanca week 2, they're going to welcome Portville.
Okay.
So they got a tough schedule opening up with those two teams.
But I mean, still, Avery Brown, Tritley, remember him? He was huge last year for this team. He's going to come back and be a huge impact on this team. Warwick Kyler, too, on the line.
Tough kid.
Remember that kid
Real
was
tough
a
kid.
kid we're talking about for the trench that we're going to be out there. 6'6", 290, the kid's listed as.
Yeah. I want to say we're streaming that Portville at Salamanca game on Friday night.
Okay.
So that'll be one to keep your eyes on there. And then they go to Southwestern week 3, and that's always a doozy. Week 4, they go to Fredonia. And that's always a great hard-hitting affair in the Orange Bowl. So that's how Salamanca starts their season, looking at C North. Medina. They got the Christian Moss kid returning
as a junior.
as a
As
junior.
a junior.
I don't know what else they have there.
Um,
Their numbers are
so
down.
the line is going to be the big thing. That's where they lost a
They
lot
lose
to
two
graduate.
big-
They lose 2 big men to graduation. Exactly.
And Newfane's in the same boat. They lose not necessarily big, strong line kids, but you lose top quarterback, you lose a top
Dickinson and
receiver.
Snow.
How do you make up for those
You can't.
numbers?
That to
Tough.
me is the big one to make up
And
for.
we'll see
Dickinson
them
and Snow.
open up the season against Wilson. That's Thursday night. Now we're not streaming that. That's on that My TV. But our buddies that do that other site, Weekly Football Report, those guys on Instagram, follow those guys. Weekly Football Report, I believe, is what they are. They're doing a pretty good job. I think they're doing like a pregame show on the field. If we can get that information, we'll pass it along so you can follow them. They do a pretty good job down there. Newfane, yeah, they're
It's questions. Again,
some
not
questions
that,
there.
not that they're not going to be good, but this was, Snow's right now competing to be for a quarterback at ECC at the
Yeah,
moment
yeah.
and is absolutely doing a great job against somebody who's already played there for a year. And the other name that came into the mix that he was competing for that had job, Xander Fletcher from
Yeah.
Niagara Wheatfield
Yeah.
has joined into the mix. So you're talking about that's the kind of caliber quarterback that you lost. And Ben Dickinson, I'm sorry, may have been one of the most underrated receivers
Very
in
well.
all of Western New York
Very well could have
and
been.
proved it in the senior all-star game at the same time.
Yeah. So you got Medina, Newfane. Akron is another team, Tom. Last year, 4-5, I think, in the division. They got a good 30 to 40 kids coming back this year. Was Fry? Nick Fry is one of them. He was, I believe, one of the running backs. Coy Patterson, this quarterback. I seen him working with Joe Licata in the offseason. And his dad is a coach there, too, a former player himself. This Patterson's got a great arm. He's a really good quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see if Akron can start getting back into the conversation of one of those top Class C teams. They've got, it seems to me at least, to looking like Newfane did last year. They kind of remind me of Newfane last year. We'll have to wait and see on the receiving end of things. Jack Juliker had 2 touchdowns. This other kid, Braden Lamont, and then again the sophomore, now junior, Blake Gerstung. That's the kid that they're really talking about in Akron as a kid that could help them get back to where Akron once was in terms of relevance. And they're always competitive,
Yep.
but I think they've got enough there right now to get back into one of those top Class C teams, certainly in North, but maybe in all of C. What are you pointing at me for?
Because there's one team I really believe is going to be very dangerous this year that's not talked about enough.
Okay.
It's Alden.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're getting there. Yeah, Alden is another team that's been slowly but surely putting pieces together to work their way back into prominence. Alden, wait a second. What do you say? Alden's a B team, aren't they? Or do they move down to C?
No, they're C North.
Okay. All right. I was looking at last year's. Oh, yeah. Alden now joining in that C North. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Alden
What do we
has-
talk about? Line.
Yeah.
Robbie Westmiller. Let me say it again.
He might be one of the top.
Absolutely.
He might be one of the top in Western New York right now.
It reminds me of almost kind of what we talked about with Medina for the last
Yeah,
couple of years.
yeah.
That it's kind of over at Alden right now, that same play right there that you have to be cognizant of. This Alden team is going to be very dangerous inside this division.
They do lose their running back.
Correct?
They do lose their running back, who was just an absolute stud. We'll have to wait and see how they
went to
pick up
Portland,
for that.
didn't he?
Portland?
I
Yeah, he did go
went
down
to
to
Portland,
Portland.
and
Yeah.
he may get a chance to play
It'd be
this
interesting.
weekend.
It'll be interesting. I don't know. I haven't seen the final roster for Cortland or a depth chart there to really understand who's doing what. Alden, there was another kid. I thought that Shaver kid. There was a Liam Shaver was halfway decent, tight end for them. A nice another depth player, if you will, in one of those skill positions. But yeah, that Alden. All I've heard about really from teams that have scrimmaged Alden this past summer, the last couple of weeks, is this is a tough team. This team is going to beat you up.
some little things to look at that I always try to see is, so when you look at teams that are your larger teams that are out there, that's when you see more of the captains, right? A lot of the double A's there that you see, Monsignor Martin, some of the bigger schools, the A's. Here is a C school that has right now listed 6 different captains on this team already. So, what does that tell you as far as what's coming back as the base to this team? Westmiller, Parto, Wypick, Urso, Lucas, Koch. Those are your captains for this year on this team. Telling you, dangerous.
Yep. Roy Hart is another team that
Yep.
people are going to probably turn their heads a little bit and want to see that they're starting to slowly improve and turn things around. Chris Knight, he seems to think this team is not talked about enough, and they've got some players there coming back that are going to really be team that they're going to have to teams are going to have to reckon with. So we'll have to wait and see how Roy Hart Barker turns things around. Last year, a 2-17, 1-5 overall, but that was a young team last year.
Remember, came from 8-man, then
Yes,
kind of came
yes.
into the mix with it, dropped one of the other teams that were out there. Now really starting to get under under their belt here a little bit. I really believe this is a team that's got some talent out there. We'll just wait to see whether they can take the next step against some of these teams.
Western New York Maritime Charter, I believe they got knocked down to C North along with Tonawanda.
Yeah.
New coach at Tonawanda and Chris Glenn been there with Will East, and then
New logo and everything too.
yeah, they're now what are they? The
Timberwolves, yeah.
Okay, Tonawanda Timberwolves, and then Western New York. I don't want to screw this up because we'll get an email. Western New York Maritime Tapestry Charter. Are they? Is there someone else with them or Global with them too, or no?
I only have it listed on here as Maritime and Tapestry.
Okay. So they're down in C North. I know. I don't think they won a game last year. But
Yeah, they
that's
were 0-8 in Class B last year.
okay.
And,
So
and 1-7 overall.
we'll see how they turn things around and how they fare in C. They're better than their record showed last year. But again, you've got teams that have been together for so long, players that have had time to work with each other. Western Maritime Tapestry, that's a new football program entirely. They separated from Health Sciences a year ago. We'll have to see how Glenn Millich and his crew do in year 2.
Beautiful field over there too.
It is.
You know what I
It
mean? Like
is.
really is right now one of those teams that's itching to take that next step.
Yeah.
And the minute they do take that next step, I really think we're going to see them up top constantly.
Do you know who struggled their first year? Health Sciences.
Yeah.
They I don't know if they won it more than a game or 2
Yeah.
games their first year, and they were up in A, but still they struggled out of the gate. So that's what Maritime is taking their lumps right now, and we'll have to see if they can turn things around. Yeah, I mean it's C North. If you ask my opinion, Tom, is you're looking between Akron, Alden, the Glenn Graham era is over at Cleveland. You got a new coach coming in there. But a Glenn Graham mold for sure. We'll have to.
But
I
they've
know
struggled the last couple of years. They
they
really
have.
have.
They've got some fast kids,
Yeah.
really fast kids. Can they get back to that running game? Remember they used to have that running game with Glenn. He could put anybody back there, and these kids would go off.
Incredible line is what they
They
had.
did, but they also had fast kids that you just couldn't catch. And if they can get back to that,
They've also had the
Who
big
knows?
bruiser running back. Remember?
yeah,
And I'm not going to remember. I apologize right off the top of my head. But same instance, played the line,
Yeah.
finally got to his senior year, ran the ball.
so we're looking for big things. Out of a bunch of different teams in C. We want to see them all be competitive again. That's what you're trying to do. Get your programs competitive.
If you think about this division, if you look at last year, it was Medina Newfane. Hands down, that was it because, a lot of these teams weren't here. When you look at records here, the only teams that are coming back this year, even with winning records from last year, are Medina and Newfane.
Yeah, that's it. Those are the only 2 teams.
So
And
really
Akron,
now you're talking about who's going to take the next step. I believe Alden's one of them. And then the question is who's going to join them.
did Akron open up the season last year with a major injury? I thought they
remember
had a
off the top
major
of my head.
injury to start the year, and that kind of put them behind the 8 ball. But Akron was supposed to make a jump last year. It looks like they're going to make the jump this year. We'll have to wait and see. We're going to come back with Class B and A. We really got to get things moving. Our producer's telling us we're talking too much. You're watching the weekly Wednesday football show with Frank and Tom. Be back in a moment.
Build your next connection. Earn your next internship. Crush your next goal. What will you do next?
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics.
For an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs, more information about our Buffalo office is available at logisticsplus.com/Buffalo.
Welcome back to the weekly Wednesday football show here on WNY Athletics with Frank Wolf and Tom Prince. Tom, we're moving on to Class B. There's 3 divisions this year. The B1, you've got Amherst, Grand Island Health Sciences, BACS Charter, Kenmore East, West Seneca East, Williamsville South, B2, Cheektowaga, East Aurora Holland, Iroquois, Lakeshore, Pioneer, South Park, and then down in B3, Albion, Depew, Dunkirk, Lackawanna, Newport, Maryvale, Olean, and Springville. Springville, you mentioned a couple times earlier, a little bit tougher up front in line. They got something going there. Are they ready to take Class B overall? Remains to be seen, but it looks like they've started to put things in motion, and that team is starting to move closer to where they're competitive on a weekly basis, which at one time this was a program that was reaching the stadium year in, year out. So good things happening at Springville. We know with Olean, they got the quarterback, Joe Mess there. They've got a quarterback. Do they have anything else? We're about to find out. Olean has been a struggling program the last couple of years, but they've got this junior quarterback now that can make the throws, make the plays. Does he have help? That's what we got to figure out with Olean. We're about to find out. Newport, still another program that's starting. They only have to go. They can only go up, right? I mean, you forfeited a game last year, had trouble fielding teams for one reason or another. We need Newport to come back into prominence. I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll have to wait and see how the season shakes out for them. But Newport, we're still trying to figure out, are they on their way back, or are they still trying to struggle to put a team together week in, week out?
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem. With 3 divisions, 2 teams will make it from each division, and then you'll have 2 wild cards that are in there. This particular division, to me, may be the toughest from top to bottom when you
B3?
look at. Yes. And when I say that, it's because think about this. Depew's been a perennial team that gets there year after year, right?
Well, they're
Dunkirk's
in the playoffs.
yeah. I'm talking about that gets to the playoffs. I apologize. Dunkirk's been this team that's rising up the ranks a little bit. And then if you don't think that this right now isn't Lackawanna and Maryville inside this division, you know what I mean? You're crazy there.
Right.
And then you've got a good Depew team. Albion's always in the mix. So you know how good
They had a
are.
down year last year.
Again, been building the line, same thing. You've got an offensive lineman as your coach that's out there. That line's going to get rebuilt. Olean getting better. Springville, which we already told you was very good last year and gave teams a run. I'll tell you, this is going to be a tough division. And I think outside of those top 2 spots, it may be very difficult to get yourself into the playoffs.
And I'll tell you what a week 1 matchup. Depew has to go to Dunkirk. Now, Dunkirk struggled the last few years, and their schedule's been funky because you had a forfeit here. That's kind of messed up your flow. You're trying to build a program. Next thing you know, you got a team that forfeits on you. It might happen twice last year. Once for sure with, I think, Burgard. That didn't help anybody. So, but Dunkirk's getting back. They've got some pieces there. They've got some young kids that are ready to step up and maybe change things over to the way that they had when Sartori was there when they were going to the Section 6 finals. But the coach there is doing a very good job. Coach Gomez and his staff are doing a very good job. Yvonne, I like what's going on in Dunkirk. They got a huge test though. Depew is where you're trying to get, right? Like you said, they're a playoff team year in, year out. Dunkirk, let's see how good you are. You got Depew week 1 in your barn. Let's figure it out. And if they can beat Depew, who knows? What a confidence builder that would be.
But I'll tell you, I really like Lackawanna. I really do.
How can you not?
You know what I mean? When you look at the 2 big names, I've got to make sure that I say out here, if you don't, it starts and begins with Sammy Akagawanu. He is unbelievable. Right now listed coming into this year, 6'4", 340. That will be right up the middle.
He
that you're
doesn't
gonna
look 340 heavy. He
No.
looks 340 like that
Exactly.
Richard
Yep.
from Bennett.
But it's not only him on the line. That's the other kicker to this. LaFerald Hines Jr. is also an incredible player. This line is not going to give you much time to do anything that's out there. Amir Douglas, we've already known. And then also remember, Tyrone Clark is the
Yes.
real deal,
Yes.
folks. This kid's a running back that's a sophomore. He did everything last year as a freshman. Now he learns bigger, stronger, faster. He's now listed at 5'10", 205.
Yeah. Now it comes back to this pass defense. That's what got them in trouble last year. Can this defensive can the defensive coordinators look at the film? Where do we struggle last year? Because that's the only reason, Tom, why they lost to South Park. They should have beaten South Park. They lost to him because they couldn't contain Noah Willoughby. Now who can? Not too many people, but
Agreed.
they gave that guy too many chances, and it was that passing defense, which you alluded to last year. Can Locke want to shore that up? If they can do that, now you're talking about not just being one of the top teams in B3. You're
Could you
talking
come out, right?
top B overall.
But remember, one of those teams you're going to see on the other side is going to be Iroquois that we
Yeah.
know has got a kid
Yep,
that can
they
pass
can
the
pass.
ball like that
Now,
caliber.
staying in B3 with Maryvale, their quarterback is Jackson Moritz.
Mhm.
He had a whole year last year. It helps you've got two of the top running backs in all Western New York on your team. They're going to have to split time between those two guys, Hill and Trubin, or what I'm forgetting. I apologize. The other running back in Maryville, I know I should have his name right off the tip of my tongue there.
Tryon, you're talking about.
Tryon,
right?
yes. We had it in studio.
Tryon
here.
and Hill are the
Yeah.
two that you're going to see there. No doubt about it. And
Yeah.
Hill just seems to be impressing me even more and more. But Tryon with the year last year, remember, he was one of the people that we're talking about for player of the year.
Well, and with Tryon, you're seeing a lot of first half action. You're beating teams so bad, you don't see the field in the second half. So that had a little bit to do with his numbers, I'm sure.
And you're
But
splitting numbers with another guy.
yes. So, coaches that we talked to said, yeah, Tryon is a beast. And we were glad that he was off the field in the second half to give our guys a little bit of a rest. But yeah, you're talking Maryvale and Lackawanna right now out of B3. That's your conversation right now until, Depew's, we'll have to see what they have. They're always in the mix. I'm interested in see Depew, Dunkirk, and Springville to see where they are in the mix. And then, of course, Albion and who knows? Newport, I just want to see them field a competitive team. And Olean, you've got a quarterback there that's being talked about as one of the top quarterbacks in the area. So I want to see what Olean has to bring to the table going to B2. Cheektowaga, East Aurora, Holland teams are struggling to put wins together the last few seasons. Cheektowaga was always a powerhouse team. They had the meanest linebackers this side of the Mississippi, and I don't know what's going on with Cheektowaga, but hopefully Coach Musatelli and those guys can figure it out. Now, we know at least one or two players have gone into the city to play this, so I don't know what they're left with, Tom. We'll have to wait and see. Cheektowaga, again, is a team that was always mentioned as one of the top teams in B. Now they're struggling, and hopefully they can put things together and be a more competitive team this year. Lakeshore loses their quarterback in the offseason, Rob Gillette. Just a nice kid. Feel terrible for him. So Lakeshore's in a little bit of trouble there, especially with the new head coach. We'll have to see how Lakeshore does at the start of the season and get back to you on them. Iroquois, again, one of the top young quarterbacks. Not so young anymore. This is his third year.
Yeah, you're talking about he's a junior now.
Third year starting as quarterback for Iroquois. We'll have to see what they have. I don't know what that line looks like. I know they lost a couple there.
Yeah, but they were bringing back some. They were retooling that line, and injuries last year hurt that line.
And
I expect them to really be rebuilt, especially in that area.
And Trevor Berry, you lose. How do you make up for all those yards and all those touchdowns and just the beast that he was? And what a leader. So Iroquois, I'm not sure where we are with that program with the loss of a guy like Berry, but knowing Justice Kleitz, as good as he is as a quarterback, he should be able to make up for some of that. We'll have to wait and see.
South Park, they've used him as a second feature. He's going to just become the first feature is what's going to happen. It's been Trevor Berry because that's been your guy. So he hasn't had to have everything weighted on his shoulders. Yeah. I'm telling you, he's ready to take on that role.
We'll have to wait and see. South Park, big line. I don't know if they're as athletic as some of the other lines, but they are big and strong. and they did very well out down in Cortland in those lineman challenges. They did very well. South Park has a quarterback come in from Cheektowaga. They looked okay, Tom, in Cortland. They looked all right. They looked like they were a new offense.
Yep.
You know, they have to work out the kinks. I know they had a scrimmage not long ago with Canisius. I think they did okay there. So we'll have to wait and see what Tim Delaney has dialed up for that team. We know they have a strength in the offense. They have a new quarterback coming in. They haven't had a new quarterback in years.
That's
They-
the question right there.
Yeah.
That's the big
Can
question.
they move the ball and can they block? We'll have to wait and see. And that defense is going to be tough. We know their defense is going to be tough and ferocious like they always are. Pioneer, though.
That's your team. I honestly, early on, to me, you say Pioneer and Iroquois are your two ones early front. South Park's absolutely going to be competing with that spot up there early on. And then it's the question. Cheektowaga, we know what the past has brought to them. Can they bring that past up right now to the current present? And can they again compete for one of these spots?
We'll have to wait and see here. Pioneer, Sammy Platt, Gavin Schwab, you got Carter Jaboo, and then Isaac Platt. And I don't think too many people know about Isaac just yet, but this dude is, I think he's a junior this year. I'm in love with this kid.
Well, a lot of people didn't know a lot about Jaboo last year,
Right.
coming into this year.
Dalton. Now
Yeah,
Carter's
exactly.
coming in.
And Carter.
Who had the catch last year?
Carter.
Carter had that
It
ridiculous
was. Yeah,
catch
it was
on
Carter. That
SportsCenter?
was the
Okay.
reason. That was what
Yeah.
brought him to notoriety.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about it, you were always starting and ending with Dalton.
Of course.
But I'm going to tell you, this Carter is legit,
Oh,
and
yeah.
in fact, got even a bigger body presence than even Dalton does. And I'm telling you, he's poised for an amazing
Yeah.
senior season.
So I'm very interested in Pioneer. I know we're doing Grand Island Pioneer this Friday. Jake Fyack will be down there. I'm interested to watch that stream. But I'm really excited about this Isaac Platt kid. So good luck to Coach Dupre and the Pioneer. Yeah, if they're not the top team in B, they're definitely in the conversation top three.
Oh yeah.
For sure. They did very well at Cortland. Actually, they lost to CSP in the 7-on-7 championship in a game that came down to like the last possession. So they did great. The CSP and Pioneer represented Section 6 very well down there. B1, Amherst, a struggling program. They got to find some pieces there to really start competing with the health sciences and the West Seneca East and the Will Souths. You know, Amherst got some work to do. Kenmore East, they're starting to build something there behind their new coach, who's been, I want to say it's his third or fourth season there. But Kenmore East is starting to come together, Tom. They've got some pieces there. They got a nice big line. Nick Wilson, this young kid, starting to come in to his own. You're going to hear that name a couple times. Nick Wilson is a junior this year. Tough kid. Anchoring that line, nose tackle, big, mean kid. I'm excited to see what Kenmore East brings to the table down in B1 for their second year. Grand Island's down in B.
Yeah, that's the problem. We're talking about all the teams that have now
Yeah.
come down into this division right here.
Grand Island, West Seneca East is never an easy game. Even if West Seneca East doesn't have the skill, they've got the mean, the toughness, and Marino is going. Even if that team has no business winning a game, you're going to get everything out of them, and they are just a mean ass team. You don't want to play. They just beat you up for 4 quarters.
Controls
they may
the clock.
lose.
They'll control
Yes.
the clock is what
I
they'll do.
think they've got some pieces though coming back for the Trojans this year. That's a team you're going to want to watch your eye on. They're like an X factor, if you will, coming out of B1. I'm very
You're
interested.
going
to
to
see
learn
what
a
they
lot
do.
in that first game. That West
Yeah.
Seneca East Cheektowaga game, which is a rivalry game
is.
to those two teams. You will learn a lot about both those teams in that side of that game. Remember, a very close game week 1 last year.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Will South, they've got some pieces coming together. I know they use more than one quarterback there, but Licata, is this year 3 for him or year 2?
Year 3 is
Could be year 3 for him. Timmy, year 3? Okay, Timmy Gardner's holding up 3 fingers. Or are you telling me to quit? Cut it. Oh, 3 fingers. All right. Will South is going to be a tough out any way you slice it. You know, they have some. They had the one win last year against Health Sciences. The one thing that Will South has going for him, Tom. They do have athletes there, but they also have a super high IQ football instincts. That team is prepared. They go through that film, and Joe's got a good coaching staff there.
Now listen, it all comes from your coaches, right?
Yeah.
That is a top coach right there when you talk about in Western New York, and he's proving it how ready this team is.
Yeah.
And remember, big win last year over, if you remember, Health Sciences last year, which nobody saw coming, and that was because that team was prepared for that game.
Absolutely. Grand Island, new into B. We'll have to see how Coach Dean Santorio gets that team ready to go. I'm surprised to see Grand Island down in B. I'm surprised to see Will South in B myself. But that's where they are.
This is one of those you don't know yet, right?
No, it's
like
not a lot.
Grand Island, Health Sciences, an improved Kenmore East team, which we saw last year. West Seneca East, the perennial powerhouse here. Will South, we know is good. This really is going to be a dogfight in this division to see who's going to be the two teams that are going to come out.
So we'll have to wait and see what Grand Island has for Class B this year. Health Sciences, that's the team that's run, rampant over this class for
a lot of losses, but we'll see what they've retooled with. That obviously we don't know all the retooling that happened yet.
Yeah, but they reload too, just like anybody else.
Yep.
So I'd be interested. I mean, I think it's going to come down to Health Sciences and Pioneer. If you were to put a gun to my head, I'd say that's probably the two teams you're looking at. But
I don't know. I don't know if I can count Lackawanna not being in that mix or Maryville either.
Well, you're right. But I think, given their past, especially the last year or two, they are so balanced. And there's some things that we're not sure about with Lackawanna. Can you defend the pass? That's your question. You're going to have to answer it early on for us to start saying, you know what? Pioneer's going to struggle here. And right now, other than the line, we can't say that with a straight face.
Oh, yeah. We can't say that with a straight face by any team at this point because you just don't know yet. And there are role players that are going to come into every single one of these games that we don't know who those are yet. And we don't know who's going to be the new ones that are going to stand out or who's going to get injured.
Depth.
Exactly.
Injuries in depth. Well, let's go right into A here, Tom. Clarence is your repeat Section 6 champion. They may have the top offense of all these teams that we've talked about with Bryce Tubin and his receiving corps that's coming back. Clarence, Paul Bergio, finally they get that Section 6 title. They are the heavy favorite coming out of Class A. Frontier is down there. McKinley's down there. They're retooled. Yep. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. Niagara Wheatfield, I'm not sure about. West Seneca West got a quarterback that's been there for a few years now. Stupak. We'll see what West Seneca West brings to the table. And then Will North. There's another team that's, last year just a couple of mistakes kept them out of the playoffs, right? A couple of late season plays didn't go their way. In A2, you got Hamburg.
In fact, didn't it come down to the last game between them and Lockport to see who was going to get in, right?
Yeah. And then Lockport ends up at the stadium.
You think about it. That's it. It was that close.
A2, Hamburg, Ken West, North Tonawanda, Star Point, Sweet Home, and Will East. We know Sweet Home's got a quarterback coming back in Rocco Panapino. He's got some pieces to work with. Sweet Home could be your early odds-on favorite to win A2, but again, you can't count out Will East.
Will East looks good right now, what they've got brought in. Ken West with their big lines that are out there.
Star Point.
And then North Tonawanda's bringing back a big running back.
They're bringing back a good running back. Yep. I want to see North Tonawanda find another piece, though. That's the only thing with North Tonawanda.
You don't want to be one-dimensional is what you're saying.
You can't. If this kid earns to as good a running back as he is, if this kid's going to get the ball 35 to 40 times a game, by week 5 or 6, what is he going to have left? You're playing A football. You're not playing against, the same 11 kids that are on the field for, offense and defense. You're getting different kids, healthy bodies, depth. And that's why I worry when I see a kid on one team at this and the A's and double A's running the ball 35, 40 times. That's a lot to give one kid. But, for North Tonawanda, we'll have to, if that's the recipe for success, Tom, then who am I to say anything? But that's my concern anyways.
I thought Mike Grady came out last year and really started to show what he could do at quarterback. He's now got a full year under his belt, seen things right there. He can be a dangerous weapon for this Star Point team.
Absolutely. And then you throw in Lucas Lombardo on defense. He can also be a weapon for you offensively. But
he had the most tackles in all Western New York last year. It was insane.
Insane football player. We'll see them against Health Sciences week 1.
Which we've seen for the last 2 years now.
And that should be a great game. Ken West has got some pieces come together. I know they've got a quarterback, Jack Johnson, who is a real nice kid, real nice player, smart, can play the position. And Ken West is, is very high on Johnny's very confident in his team. He thinks they've got some real skill there this year. They open up week 1 on Saturday against Will East. Timmy, we're doing that game, correct? So we'll be live streaming that one at Crosby Field. Tom, A is loaded.
Oh, there's no doubt it's loaded. And I want to give credit because we didn't say his name, but it's Christian Ernst, who's with
Christian
North
Ernst, yeah.
Tonawanda, that we really want to make sure we recognize because he was on our radar all year last year. The question is, can he be the Mahar this year where he puts the team on his back and does some things? Or are there going to be more pieces to the puzzle that we're going to see get added in?
And he's definitely he's been on the radar. He's a different type of player. Hopefully he's getting some offers too. Frontier, they've got this kid Waters there, and I think Kibler comes back. 2 good running backs for Frontier, and also a new head coach, do they not?
Yes.
New head coach there. So we'll have to see how Frontier fits into the mix here in Class A1. Didn't they go toe-to-toe with OP last year?
Yes, early on in the first game of the season. Yeah,
they went toe-to-toe with them, so we know they're going to bring it. McKinley,
it's Joe Fasciano who's going to be the head coach over at Frontier.
Okay, we got an interview with him. Carson Haig did that. We'll post that up in just a little bit here. McKinley, Tom, that team could be
every year, but they now lost a lot of that line. Losing a Carl Jones on that line was tremendous. So did he get his line? Did he retool at the line? Because he does get a big running back that's going to come back into the mix.
Yep. And then double A's, we say it every year. Bennett, Lancaster, Orchard Park, Jamestown. But now Lockport's starting to play better. Niagara Falls, what's going on there? They've got almost 2,500 kids in the school. Niagara Falls should be a powerhouse week in, week out. Hutch Tech, new coach there. They're not getting the athletes that Bennett is getting, that South Park and McKinley's getting, but you got enough kids there to choose from. Hopefully,
it's funny. They've actually had a good line the last couple of years.
They did.
Really just they needed some of the skill players to join some of that line out there at Hutch Tech. And then you talked about it. Lockport will be the one that we're gonna say, wow, okay, they're up there playing in the double A's. Can they go ahead and pull something? And I'd be remiss, and I think you would too, that we don't congratulate at least Tony Caligiuri joining that staff over at Niagara Falls. We're going to see him. We'll see him on the sidelines.
Yeah. Jamestown, you got a couple of tough kids coming back. I think there's a Panabianco there, but they had like this quarterback, not a controversy, but they had a couple of quarterbacks battling it out for the top spot there. I know Dominic Gonzalez was one of those kids that was looking for the job, and Cabrera was the other guy. And I think Cabrera is the guy they wanted to because Gonzalez is like another X factor. We want this kid to be, catching balls and disrupting and getting open. He's such a dynamic athlete. They really want Cabrera, who is a prototype quarterback, to take the lead there. And I think they're still developing there. So we'll have to wait and see. I think Jamestown could have a tough year, Tom, in Double A again. I think they open up at Frontier week 1, so that'll be a big test for those guys. But it's Jamestown.
Yeah, listen, Jamestown retools every year.
Jamestown
will be in the mix. There is 100% no doubt about it. It just depends on exactly, like we said, how they retooled. This is the year I'm going to say this, and I'm always very, very quiet about this team, and everybody knows why I'm very, very quiet about it. This could be the year for Orchard Park. We haven't talked about a quarterback wide receiver combo like this since Sharp. I mean, it's been a few years like that. Sharp's probably the last one we've really talked about that played that quarterback role.
Well, Evans, and who was the quarterback there that went to Brockport?
Oh, Gasella.
I mean, that was a hell of a combination.
It really was.
Did they have more pieces? That was an unbelievable combination there.
And what we always talked about there was the line, right?
Yeah.
And this is the one thing is we've seen that line keep getting a little bit better each year.
Yeah, more athletic.
But even with, like you talked about, Gasella and Evans are phenomenal. That's why they're playing at the next level. I'd never take anything away from them because those kids are great.
Yeah.
But boy, it is tough when you got right now a quarterback and a twin brother wide receiver that can communicate like nobody else can.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very interesting. And I do think they've got other pieces. I know we're talking about giving these two the love, but guess what?
The running back?
They're going to get, and he comes back, remember, for some injuries that he's coming back off of there. I really believe this Orchard Park team, they've got to come over two things. Okay?
Yep.
One is you got to get over the Lancaster thing, period. Yeah, remember the last time you beat Lancaster was the last time they weren't at the stadium.
It's been a while.
So you got to get over that hump and beat
It's been a
Lancaster,
while.
right? Lancaster, we say it hands down every single year. I don't know if there's a complete coaching staff that's better in Western New York when you're talking about top to bottom.
Well, it's week 3, and it's at Orchard Park, and I believe we've got you on that game already, so you're going to get a front row seat.
And that whole complex has changed over there.
Oh, it's beautiful.
If you haven't gotten down to Orchard Park to see the new field and the complex, you better get down there because that really is what Mr. Gallagher would always say is it's Quakerville down there now. It really is that kind of a complex again.
It is nice. You'll see Orchard Park week 1 on the road against Sweet Home, and they usually have a pretty good matchup.
Yep.
There's
Last 2
2-story
years have been
programs
phenomenal.
there. Yeah.
And this is the one thing I didn't say about Rocco. It'll be very interesting. He's committed to now play Division I baseball for Canisius.
Okay.
Right? Now you don't have to worry about that. Am I playing football? Am I playing baseball? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Do I got to show this? Now it's just go free and have fun and be able to go do this. And if he goes in with that kind of an attitude, he may be one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in Western New York.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think he's got pieces to help him out there. But staying with AA, now Lancaster. I've talked to coaches and I saw some film from their scrimmages this past weekend. They look great. They look great. They get McQuaid week 1, non-division game. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. It's non-league. It's not going to hurt you. Then you got to go to Lockport, and then it's that Orchard Park. And those are 2 road games. So Lancaster, you want to obviously compete with McQuaid. Show that you can compete with that team because you may have to go through there, right? If you're coming out of 6, you're staring at McQuaid, most likely. So there's a lot riding on that game. Lockport's no easy out, and that's a road game. It's not an easy place to play at, but Lancaster, they've done so well over the years with other teams in AA. They've struggled with Bennett the last few seasons, and then Orchard Park, they play them tough. They just have their number right now. But I agree with you. If there's a season where out of the gate you look at Orchard Park and say, okay, how do they stack up with Lancaster and Bennett? Take it one team at a time. Lancaster, I think they've closed the gap a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. On paper, they look like they should be playing, step for step with Lancaster. We'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely.
That's why they play the game in week 3. Bennett, though.
And you never count Bennett out. That's the one thing
Bennett.
that we talked about. But a lot of just unknown at this point, right?
There's a lot of unknown with Bennett.
They lost their quarterback. They lose their defensive back, right? Lose to another school out of state. Okay, get it. They retooled. We just don't know what the retool is at this point.
These guys have athletes coming out of their ears in that school. I think they got 7 schools to pull from, right? So that helps. They're going down to D.C. to play a St. John's team week 1. I don't have any information on that game being streamed. If it is, we'll try to pick it up and show it to you somehow. Then they get Hutch Tech week 2, Niagara Falls, and then Jamestown, and that's down. That is at home. That's at All High. I think we're doing that game. And then it's Lancaster, Frontier, Lockport, who played them extremely tough last year.
Remember, that was the toughest game they had all year.
And then they end up at Orchard Park. And I know they've been beating Orchard Park the last few years, but isn't that one of those teams that they just kind of forget about?
I don't know if they forget them.
There's times when
their last loss in conference was to Orchard Park.
Exactly.
And it was that Casella Evans game, if you remember.
They
put up big points in that one. So, but then remember, they also woke up the Giant after those games.
Yes,
and they lost
they did.
60 the next 2 times.
Yes, yes. And Bennett probably didn't forget that because I've hammered that point the last few years with them.
You do not take a team lightly because this is exactly what will happen.
Bennett is built to win state championships. And I think that's what separates them from a lot of other teams in West New York. They are not here just to win a Section 6 title. We are here to win state championships and move our players on to Division I. That's their goal.
Yeah, agreed.
Lofty goals. So,
I'll tell you, Rashad Perry played very well this weekend in his game against Ohio. Got tons of time. Also, so did Jobity over at Maryville. In fact, they would interchange them. That's kind of what would happen. Syracuse had 3 different defensive lines they went with. Yeah. Jobity would get time on one. Perry would get time on the other. I didn't get a chance. Jameer Thomas did not get into the game.
I didn't see him.
I was a little shocked because I don't know how you can stop 4.2 speed that they didn't have it.
Maybe he's not
He-
4.2 anymore.
Well, then he got faster. But he is something to watch.
Yeah.
I do think we're going to see him on the field before too long.
I hope so.
Yeah, especially if there's any injury or anything.
Tim, do we have time to go through Monsignor Martin, or you want us to take a break? We got Monsignor Martin. Break a break. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back on Weekly Wednesday Football Show with Frank Wolf and Tom Prince. We'll be back in a moment.
We've got a VIP at 3 o'clock. We're gonna go side right, pick, Riptide Blazer, safety key, full boat up 3. On now, ready? They're all VIPs.
Go Team Wester. Ready, Bobby?
Yeah.
At freeway speeds, it can take an 18-wheeler far too long to stop.
Now?
Keep going! Fact is, it can take 2.5 football fields for a semi-truck to stop.
Over here.
And still, we see many big trucks barreling down on everyday motorists.
Thank you. Hey!
If you're injured by a truck, I won't give them a break.
Finally.
Truck hit your car? Call William Attar.
Welcome back to our weekly Wednesday football show. Tom Prince, Frank Wolf, Tim Gardner producing here on WNY Athletics. We've gone through all the Section 6 classes and divisions. We're going to go to Monsignor Martin. St. Francis is still king over there in Division A. Canisius is right there, though, Tom, ready to pounce. Jaden Clark, Elijah Kimball, this Canadian quarterback that comes in. A couple of transfers here and there. Man, oh man, Canisius and Franny's, but you can't not talk about Joe's. And now Bishop Timon has earned the right to finally play for a Catholic State Championship, thanks to what Joe Licata started and what Matt Weiser's really taken to another level. Great coaching staff there. So now you're talking about Timon, Joe's, Franny's, Canisius, and a real Monsignor Martin playoff. We got to get O'Hara and St. Mary's of Lancaster in there too, Tom. I know those programs are working, Zito and Mangold, respectively. We'll talk about them. Well, let's talk about them first. You got Zito at St. Mary's of Lancaster. Tough trying to get that team to get the numbers there and to find that dynamic athlete. Who's it going to be? I know there's a kid named there, Wilson. I think it's Isaiah Wilson. Real fast kid, great special teamers. He's got a lot of talent. Is that enough, Tom? I don't know. We haven't really talked to Coach Zito just yet. Tried to get through a couple practices. It just didn't work out. St. Mary's of Lancaster, probably going to struggle, Tom. And again, it's just them and O'Hara in that division, that B division. But they play a number of teams. We are going to broadcast week 2, St. Mary's at O'Hara. We'll be doing that game. O'Hara, they've got a big lineman coming back. They've got some pieces, a new field to get excited about. I want to say it's year 4 with Mangold there. Year 3 or 4.
Yeah.
They've started to turn a corner. Yeah, they got 4 or 5 wins last year. I think it was 4 wins. A couple over at St. Mary's, that Minders team. That's a struggling program, but still, no one cares at the end of the day. It's the wins and the momentum. And O'Hara's slowly but surely, like Timon, starting to get some momentum. Can they carry it? That's the toughest job Mangold has, carrying the momentum from the locker room, from season to season, and getting it into his players' heads that, guys, we are a Catholic private school. We are expected to compete with Joe's and O'Hara. Well, I'm sorry, with Joe's and Canisius and Franny's. Let's get going here. Let's put the work in. We can do it. And that's hopefully Mangold's got that built into their heads, and that's what's going on there. I think O'Hara is starting to get to where Timon is now.
6 returning starters on both sides of the ball. So that's really where it begins and ends right there. I've got 6 guys on offense. I've got 6 guys on defense right now that are coming back into the program that understands what the message that we're trying to deliver and how we're trying to take on that next step.
Okay, just got a nice text message from one of the coaches, says you're not talking enough about us. Just kidding. Anyways, St. Joe's lost some pieces last year, but they've got numbers. Coach Corona has been here since we had COVID, right?
In fact, I want to say that was when we did his initial thing.
Yeah.
Right during
Yeah.
COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't blame him for the season being canceled because his last name is Corona and was the coronavirus, but we thought it was funny anyways, if you can make a joke about it. anyways, I think he's finally got his stamp on that program. Right? He's got players
He's been
buying
running
in,
some very good camps
and he's
where
building
he's
those
been
numbers.
getting those numbers up.
The
Yes.
freshman team, the JV team, the varsity, they're all aligned. He's running those summer camps. Kids are really starting to buy in. He's got kids playing football the St. Joe's way. Can they compete with Franny's and Canisius? We'll have to wait and see. I think they're starting to turn that corner, though, where instead of it being a 2-horse race, maybe we're almost at that 3-team race. And you know what? If Canisius and Franny's want to get any better, they need more iron to sharpen swords with, right? And what better program than St. Joe's? And then Timon. For years,
Timon beat them
Timon.
last year, remember?
Exactly. For years, Timon was one of those teams that you knew you were in for a fight, and they were winning. So for Joe's and Timon, if they can get things turned around and push Joe's and Canisius, now we can really start to compete again with the Stepniaks and those teams out in Long Island. Because whoever we send, those teams out there, there's 5 or 6 of them, Tom, that can beat every single team in Western New York, maybe except for like a Bennett and Lancaster. But those teams down on Long Island that Franny's has to play and Canisius has to play if they come out of this, they're devastating, those teams. Those programs are ridiculously good. And I put them up against anybody in the state. So Franny's and Canisius got their work cut out with them, but they need more iron to sharpen those swords so that they can become better programs. So Franny's opens up on Friday night against Benedictine in Ohio. They've already played 2 games. And I can't remember what Canisius has got going on there. It's Scranton.
Canisius, Scranton Prep.
Scranton Prep. Okay, so they got a couple of away games. Canisius at Scranton Prep, at Massillon, and then at Cathedral Prep. And
that Massillon game will be very interesting because
that's
the 2 players we were talking about where Bennett went. So
I don't know where I am on that 13th, so maybe we take a ride out there. I don't know if I want to go to Cleveland 2 weekends in a row. I'm toying with going there Friday, but we'll see. Franny's Benedictine, Ironton, Catholic Mem at home. That Catholic Mem team, last year we saw them on the stream. Looked like they had 200 kids on the field suited up for that game. That's a hell of a program. That's a state championship program Franny's is bringing into town in week 3. Timon opens up against Aquinas. That's a hell of a I know Aquinas has been down the last couple of years, but still, they're still a hell of a program. And St. Mary's of Lancaster, home against Bishop Kearney. Greece Olympia, that's where O'Hara is going. That's a 7 p.m. game on Friday night. Tom, Franny brought those kids in. They had a couple of transfers come in, and they look tough.
Via the wrestling program.
Yeah,
too.
they look tough before, but now with these 2 linemen, these beasts coming in, I don't know. Canisius,
two linemen over on the other side. Canisius is D1. So like we've got lines that are going to smack. It's going to be true mouth in the trenches.
So that's pretty much where we are. We'd like to send a shout out to all these teams and have great seasons, healthy seasons. Look for us, WNY Athletics, and then if you're like a player of the game and we're doing that game, I think you're going to walk away with one of these things again. These WNY Athletics headbands. There we are. WNY Athletics headbands at the end of the game. We're streaming. Hopefully you'll wear those loud and proud around town. And again, cnyathletics.com is also out there. We'll be doing some Syracuse games. I know you're going out to Waverly for 2 heavyweight matchups on Saturday. I'm not sure what you're doing tomorrow. I'm heading down to Portville.
Tomorrow, tomorrow I'm work stuff. I'll be doing the next couple of days. So
but we'll see you and hear you soon enough.
Saturday,
And I want to wish again everybody a healthy season and just do your best out there and respect the game. Be good with the officials. Remember the Trench Trophy is out there. You linemen out there, give it your best week in, week out. Connolly Cup guys are on the sideline walking up and down. They're not just looking for the top performers. They're looking for guys that are also well-behaved. Character matters. So have good seasons. Represent your schools well. Represent your section well. And shout out to all those officials, Northern County, Southern County, that give up their time and do a great job officiating these games. We love you all. And come see us. Come stop by and see us at WNY Athletics. We appreciate you tuning in. And we'll see you next week here on Weekly Wednesday Football with Frank and Tom. Thanks to Tim Gardner producing. Have a good night, everybody.